We are back. Senate Republicans, what have they done? Well, they have repeatedly abused the filibuster to block common sense legislation that most Americans, the majority of Americans, have wanted. For example, Senate Republicans filibustered the Zadroga 9/11 Health Care Act. It would have provided over $7 billion in health care funds to 9/11 first responders. A watered-down version of the bill, well, it eventually passed. Republicans hid behind these 9/11 first responders for years. They used these heroic Americans to start a war of choice in Iraq. Then when they got sick from hazardous working conditions, Senate Republicans used the filibuster to deny them the proper health care funds they needed. Republicans also filibustered the Veterans Jobs Act. It would have provided $1 billion to help create over 20,000 jobs for veterans returning home from war. These brave Americans, well, they were sent to Iraq and Afghanistan. They put their lives on the line every day to serve our country. Then, when they came home, they needed some help. Republicans used the filibuster to say, no way, can't do it. And finally, Senate Republicans filibustered the Bring Jobs Home Act. You know that thing about outsourcing? The act would have created a 20% tax break for moving jobs back to the United States. And it would have penalized companies for shipping jobs overseas. Republicans filibustered legislation that would have created jobs and helped the middle class. This one even included a tax break. And they still said no. Remember, these are just three of 386 filibusters that the Republicans have used to stop the Obama agenda dead in its tracks. Time and time again, Republicans abuse this rule to hurt America's progress. Senate Democrats basically are sick of it, and they're talking about this. They want to change this filibuster rule. Majority Leader Harry Reid wants the following changes. Senators can't filibuster a debate. He wants a shorter time to break a filibuster, and he wants senators to speak out about their filibuster in public. These are not drastic changes. This isn't going to roll the Senate over, and the filibuster would still be around, still be a tool. But House Speaker John Boehner is now involved. He says he's not impressed. He issued this threat. A threat saying that any bill that reaches a Republican-led House based on Senate Democrats' heavy-handed power play would be dead on arrival. Isn't it amazing how they just get along? This proves that Boehner's do-nothing Congress isn't concerned about moving the country forward. He will hold an American people. He's going to hold the American people hostage, in the legislative process, to just block everything he possibly can to stop President Obama's agenda? Is that what America wants? Do you think that's what they voted for? I don't think so. Let's bring in John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine. John, good to have you with us tonight. There seems to be more and more conversation about this. Let me play devil's advocate. Why do this? Why not let the Republicans just continue to filibuster and let them politically hang themselves in the midterms? Why do the Democrats want to do this?
Well, if the theory was that you could let them hang themselves, then they would have already hung themselves many times over. The fact of the matter is that the filibuster is not front-page news. It's not something that people generally pay attention to. It's a procedure within the Senate. And the Republicans have abused it now ever since Democrats took control of the Senate. The concern here is not to get rid of the filibuster. That's the important thing to understand. What Harry Reid and especially some of the younger senators, folks like Jeff Merkley from Oregon, are proposing is to restore the filibuster. It's a very simple proposal. They want to bring back the filibuster as it existed in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. They want it to be like Jimmy Stewart, when he had to go to the floor and actually stand on his principles. Now, unfortunately, the filibuster is usually used secretly, behind closed doors, to stop debate, to prevent us from even having a vote. That has nothing to do with what Americans understand as a filibuster, and there is simply no reason to allow the abuses to continue.
Well, it means that if they were to filibuster, they have to go to the floor and do, as you say, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and talk endlessly until some conclusion. What do the changes mean for Democratic bills, you think?
It could mean a lot, because many of the bills that Democrats have proposed have majority support. They can win in the Senate. The problem is they can't get to the 60 votes that would be required to break a filibuster or to force a vote. And so all that's being proposed here is to say, look, if you want to do a filibuster, You've got to be public about it. You've got to go to the floor. You've got to speak openly about why you don't want a vote to occur. If you can convince a majority of senators to block it, you win. So it's just majority rules.
What do you make of House Speaker John Boehner's threat that, you know, anything that comes over to his side is going to be dead on arrival? Do you think this is going to affect anybody's decision-making process here now when they're talking about doing this in the Senate?
I certainly hope not. First off, John Boehner ought to worry about his own chamber. We're supposed to have separation of powers even within the Congress. The Senate does its rules, the House does its. So first off, he ought to keep his nose where it belongs, which is in his own chamber. Secondly, he's talking about punishing the American people because of a rule change in the Senate that would occur after the fiscal cliff deadline. The Senate will organize itself at the start of the new year. And so Boehner's making threats that really have very, very little to do with reality. Unfortunately, that seems an awfully lot like a lot of his approaches to this whole fiscal cliff debate.
John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine. Great to have you with us tonight. Thanks, John. Have a good weekend. There's a lot more coming up in the next half hour of The Ed Show. Stay with us.
We are a country of unlimited opportunity. We want the world's best and brightest to come here.
House Republicans pass an immigration bill Congressman Javier Becerra calls divisive and inferior. Congressman Becerra is here to explain why. Next. The nation's first fast food strike is a historic protest for workers' rights.
The reason you're on the top is we're holding you up. Might as well appreciate us.
The workers are fighting back, and we'll tell you what it's all about. And the White House debuts their first Bo Obama Christmas video. But how does it stack up to Barney Camp?
You and Miss Beasley could be junior park rangers if you want to, but you're sure going to have to learn about the national parks if you want to be a junior park ranger.